The first time I heard it, I was scrubbing dried blood from the Vox grill with a wire brush, and the voice said my daughter's name. I dropped the helmet. It clattered against the deck plating of the armory maintenance bay, rolling twice before settling face up, the empty visor staring at nothing. Around me the usual sounds of the regiment's equipment processing continued, servitors hauling crates, tech adepts muttering their oil prayers, the distant thump of artillery drills from the parade ground. I stood there, brush still in hand, waiting for someone to notice, to ask what was wrong. No one did. The helmet lay silent. I told myself it was fatigue, or the recycled air, or the stim rations they'd been cutting our rations with since the supply shortage began 3 months ago. I picked it up again. The officer's name was still stenciled inside the rim, Captain Verson, 4th Penal Auxiliary, deceased. He'd taken a last round through the jaw during the labor riot in Hab Sector 12. They brought his gear to me because that's what I do. 32 years as a tertiary equipment reclamation specialist, grade 7th. I clean the helmets. I scrub the boots. I strip the webbing and sort the small arms and catalog every piece so it can be reissued to the next body that needs it. The administratum doesn't waste. The Emperor provides, but only if we recycle properly. Verson's helmet was standard Mark IV pattern, dented along the left temple, Vox bead corroded from sweat and humidity. Nothing special. I'd processed 246 helmets since the beginning of the fiscal quarter. This was just another. But when I lifted it to check the seal ring, I heard it again, Mira. My daughter's name, whispered, dry as ash. I set the helmet on the workbench, hands shaking now, and backed away. The armory felt too small suddenly, the walls too close. The stink of lapping compound and gun oil turned sour in my throat. I glanced at the nearest servitor, a hunched thing with 3 arms and a face replaced by sensor clusters, but it ignored me, sorting ammunition belts with mechanical precision. The tech adept 2 stations over was chanting the litany of proper function over a disassembled lass ruffle. He didn't look up. I was alone with it. Mira, the helmet said again, louder this time, the sound crackling through the Vox grill like static. She's waiting. I should have reported it. Regulation 47 Sigma mandates immediate notification of any anomalous equipment behavior to the Departamento Munitorum Liaison Officer, Form 88 Tertius, triplicate. I should have sealed it in a quarantine crate and filed the incident report. I should have walked away. Instead, I picked it up again and held it close to my ear. "Where is she?" I whispered. The voice didn't answer, just static, just the faint hum of the Vox bead cycling on and off, even though there was no power cell installed. I put the helmet back on the bench and finished scrubbing it. My hands moved automatically, years of routine carrying me through. When it was clean, I logged it into the reissue queue and moved on to the next item. A flak vest with a hole punched through the back plate, still sticky with something dark. I didn't think about the voice. I didn't let myself. But that night, in my HAB unit, I woke to the sound of static. The helmet was in my quarters. I don't remember bringing it. I don't remember requisitioning it from inventory. But there it sat on the small table beside my cot, visor facing me, the Vox grill glowing faintly in the dark. "Mira's waiting," it said. "She wants to see you." I sat up, pulling the thin blanket around my shoulders. The air was cold. The heating ducts had been on half ration for weeks, but I was sweating. My heart hammered against my ribs. "You're not real," I said. The helmet didn't respond. I reached for the lumen strip on the wall, flooding the room with harsh white light. The helmet sat exactly where it had been, inert, silent, just metal and circuitry. I checked the Vox bead again, still no power cell, no possible way it could transmit. I examined the interior padding, the wiring, the seal ring, everything regulation, everything normal. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning I returned the helmet to the armory. I logged it back into inventory personally, watched the servitor carry it to the reissue rack, and walked away. I buried myself in work. 30 boots, 18 chest rigs, 9 helmets. I scrubbed and sorted and catalogued until my fingers bled, until the routine swallowed everything else. 2 days later, Versen's helmet was on my workbench again. The inventory tag was different. It had been issued to a Corporal Dren, 9th Line Infantry, who'd been killed in a training accident, but I recognized the dent on the left temple, the same corrosion on the Vox bead, the same stenciled names scratched out and replaced. I checked the logs. According to the Administratum database, Versen's helmet had been issued, used for 6 days, and returned after Dren's death. Standard procedure. Nothing irregular. But it shouldn't have come back to me. I work tertiary reclamation. Dren was line infantry. His gear should have gone to secondary, 2 levels up, different processing center entirely. I stared at the helmet for a long time. Then I put it on. The world went dark. Not the darkness of closed eyes, but an absolute void, cold and weightless. I felt myself falling, or maybe rising. There was no up or down, no sense of direction. Just the voice, all around me now, inside my skull. Mira's waiting, it said. She's been waiting so long. Where? I shouted, or tried to. My mouth didn't move. I had no mouth. You know where. You've always known. And I did. Suddenly, horribly, I did. Hab Sector 37, Sublevel 9, the quarantine zone they sealed off after the outbreak 4 years ago. The sector where Mira worked as a Medicaid assistant, where she was stationed when the plague started, where they locked the doors and pumped the ventilation shafts full of industrial cleaner because it was cheaper than evacuation. 40,000 people, gone in 6 hours. The Administratum declared it a necessary expenditure. The priesthood called it the Emperor's mercy. I never saw her body. I tore the helmet off and threw it across the room. It hit the wall and cracked, the visor shattering, but the voice kept going, louder now, scraping against the inside of my head even though the helmet was 10 feet away. She's still there. She's still waiting. Go to her. I ran. Out of the armory, through the corridors, past startled workers and servitors and functionaries who shouted questions I didn't hear. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs gave out, collapsing in a supply alcove somewhere in the lower decks. I pressed my hands over my ears, but the voice didn't stop. Go to her. It whispered for 3 days. I stopped eating, stopped sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the helmet, saw Versen's dead face behind the visor, saw my daughter's smile twisting into something else. The voice never screamed, never threatened. It just repeated, patient and relentless, wearing me down like water against stone. She's waiting. On the 4th day, I went to the quartermaster and requested a rebreather unit and a hazard pass for Hab Sector 37. He looked at me with the same dull indifference he showed everyone, stamped the forms, and handed over the equipment. No questions. Why would there be? I was nobody. A reclamation specialist, disposable. The transport to the quarantine zone took an hour. The driver didn't speak. The back of the truck smelled like disinfectant and rot. When we arrived, he opened the rear door, gestured to the sealed entrance, and drove away. I stood alone in the empty plaza. The Hab towers rose around me like tombstones, their windows dark, their walls streaked with chemical burns. The air tasted sharp even through the rebreather, and the silence was absolute. Nothing moved, nothing lived. The entrance was a massive blast door, triple-locked, warning sigils burned into the metal, but the locks were old, and something had left one unsealed. It opened with a groan that echoed through the dead streets. I stepped inside. The corridor beyond was dark. My lumen pack barely cut through it, the beam swallowed by shadows that didn't move right. The walls were covered in scratches, long vertical gouges like fingernails dragged down concrete. The floor was slick with something I didn't look at too closely. Sub-level 9, the voice said, clearer now, almost gentle. Keep going. I descended. The stairwell seemed to stretch forever, each level worse than the last. Sub-level 3, bodies slumped against walls, mummified by chemicals. Sub-level 5, a child's shoe. Sub-level 7, writing on the walls in a language I didn't recognize, words that hurt to read. Sub-level 9 was where the Medicae stations had been. The door was open. I walked through, and the smell hit me, not decay, but something sweeter, wrong. The Medicae ward stretched out in rows of empty cots, their sheets still tucked tight, as if waiting for patients who would never come. At the far end, under a single flickering lumen strip, I saw her. Mira. She stood with her back to me, still wearing her Medicae scrubs, her hair tied back the way she always wore it. For a moment, just a moment, I forgot everything. I ran toward her, calling her name, reaching out. She turned. It wasn't her face. The shape was right, the hair was right. But the face was a smooth expanse of pale flesh, no eyes, no mouth, just skin stretched tight over bone. And when it spoke, the voice came from everywhere, from the walls, from the air, from inside my chest. You came. I staggered back, but my legs wouldn't work. The thing that wore my daughter's body took a step forward, then another, its movements too fluid, too perfect. Behind it, the other cots began to stir. Shapes rose from the beds, people with blank faces and Medicae scrubs, all of them turning toward me in unison. We've been waiting, they said together. We've been waiting so long. I tried to scream, but the air was too thick, my lungs too full. The thing that was Mira reached out and touched my face, and its hand was cold, so cold it burned. I felt something crack inside me, something fundamental giving way. You can stay now, it said. You can wait with us. The lumen strip died. In the darkness, I heard them moving closer. Dozens of them, hundreds maybe, all shuffling forward with that same perfect coordination. And I understood, finally, what the helmet had been trying to tell me. This wasn't a rescue. This wasn't reunion. This was processing. I don't know how long I stood there. Time stopped meaning anything. The cold spread from my face down through my chest, into my arms, my legs. I felt myself emptying out, everything that made me draining away like water through a sieve. The voices surrounded me, a chorus of whispers, and slowly, horribly, I began to understand what they were saying. They were reciting forms, inventory codes, casualty reports, the endless litanies of the administratum, the prayers of bureaucracy that kept the Imperium turning. They spoke in triplicate, in nested clauses, in reference numbers that stretched back centuries. And as I listened, I felt my mouth moving, my voice joining theirs. Tertiary equipment reclamation specialist, grade 7th deceased. Assets to be redistributed per regulation 88 gamma. The thing that was Mira took my hand. Her touch didn't hurt anymore. It felt familiar, safe. You'll wait with me now, she said. We'll wait together, forever. And I realized I couldn't remember why I'd been afraid. They led me deeper into the Medicae ward, down a corridor I hadn't seen before. The walls here were lined with helmets, thousands of them, stacked floor to ceiling, each one facing outward, each one whispering. I recognized Versons among them, cracked visor, still glowing faintly. It had found me just like all the others had found their bearers, drawn them down here to the place where the outbreak never really ended, where the cleansing had gone wrong, where something had been born in the intersection of plague and chemical fire and 40,000 deaths all at once. The Imperium doesn't waste. Everything gets recycled, even ghosts. They gave me a cot. I lay down. The sheets were cold and crisp, and above me the flickering lumen strip cast shadows that moved with purpose. The faceless things stood in rows around me, watching, waiting. My daughter, or what used to be my daughter, sat beside the cot, and stroked my hair with her too cold hand. "Rest now," she said. "You've been working so hard. Rest." I wanted to. I was so tired. 32 years of scrubbing blood from helmets, of sorting the dead's belongings, of breathing recycled air and eating stim rations and watching the administratum grind everything down to numbers and forms and inventory tags. I was tired of being nobody, tired of being disposable. Here, at least, I was wanted. I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, I was standing. The Medicae ward was gone. I was back in the armory, at my workbench, a helmet in my hands. Standard Mark IV pattern dented along the left temple. The inventory tag read, Sergeant Kellis, 3rd Support Battalion, deceased. I turned it over, examining the Vox grill. Clean, no blood, someone had already processed it. But as I set it down, I heard the whisper, so faint I almost missed it. "Go home," it said, "go home and wait." I looked around. The armory was busy, full of workers and servitors. No one noticed me. I was just another reclamation specialist, another cog in the machine. I should have filed a report, should have told someone about sub-level 9, about the things with blank faces, about what happened to the people who went into the quarantine zone. But I didn't. I picked up the next helmet and started scrubbing. That night, I returned to my HAB unit. The helmet, Versen's helmet, the original, somehow intact, sat on my table again. I didn't question it anymore. I sat down across from it and waited. The voice came an hour later. "You did well," it said. "She's proud of you." "Is she really there?" I asked. "Is any of it real?" The helmet didn't answer. I realized I didn't care. Over the following weeks, more helmets came to me. Not through official channels, they just appeared. On my workbench, in my quarters, once in the lavatorium stall. Each one whispered different things. Names I'd forgotten, dates that didn't match records, coordinates for places that didn't exist on any map. I started keeping them, lining them up along the walls of my HAB unit, arranging them in rows like the ones I'd seen in sub-level 9. At night they whispered to each other, a low conversation I couldn't quite make out. Sometimes I thought I heard my daughter's voice among them. Other times, it was my own voice reciting forms I didn't remember filing. The other workers began to avoid me. Not obviously, no one said anything, but I noticed the space they left around me in the mess hall, the way conversations died when I approached. The quartermaster stamped my requisitions without looking at me. The tech adepts turned away when I walked past. I was disappearing, bit by bit, becoming the same kind of nothing the helmets came from. 3 months after I went to sub-level 9, I received new orders, reassignment to primary reclamation, level Alpha. It was a promotion, technically, better pay grade, better rations, better quarters. But primary reclamation handles fresh casualties, the ones who die in the field, the ones whose helmets are still warm. I reported to my new station at the beginning of the next shift cycle. The processing center was enormous, 10 times the size of my old armory. Hundreds of workers moved through it, sorting gear from the latest combat drop. The air smelled like burned metal and ozone. My supervisor was a thin woman with augmetic eyes that clicked and whirred when she looked at me. She handed me a data slate without speaking, pointed to my station, and walked away. I began my work. The first helmet I processed that day was still wet. The soldier had been dead less than an hour. I cleaned it carefully, scrubbing the blood from the Vox grill, checking the seals, logging the inventory code. When I was finished, I set it aside and reached for the next one. That's when I heard it, all of them. Every helmet in the processing center. Hundreds of voices all whispering at once, a chorus of the dead speaking through corroded Vox beads and cracked visors. They said names, coordinates, warnings. Tell them we're still here. Tell them we're waiting. Tell them not to forget. I looked around. None of the other workers reacted. They couldn't hear it. Only me, the thin woman with augmetic eyes, watched from across the room. She didn't move, didn't speak, but I saw the corner of her mouth twitch. Not quite a smile, something else, she knew. I picked up the next helmet and kept working. The voices never stopped after that. Every helmet I processed added to the chorus, layer upon layer of whispers building inside my skull until there was no room left for my own thoughts. I worked 12-hour shifts, then 14, then 16. The administratum approved the overtime without question. I was efficient, valuable, disposable, but valuable. I stopped going back to my HAB unit. There was a cot in the back of the processing center for workers who volunteered for double shifts. I slept there, when I slept at all. The helmets lined the walls, whispering through the night. Sometimes Mira visited, or the thing that looked like her. It sat on the edge of the cot and stroked my hair, the way it had in sub-level 9. "You're doing so well," it said. "Just a little longer now." "Until what?" I asked. It didn't answer. 6 months after my reassignment, I stopped recognizing my reflection. The face in the lavatorium mirror looked like mine. Same scars, same gray hair, same lines around the eyes, but it was wrong somehow. Too smooth, too blank. I touched my face. The skin felt cold. The voices grew louder. 1 year after sub-level 9, I was promoted again. Logistics coordinator, primary reclamation division. I had an office now, a real one with a door and a desk and a window that looked out over the processing floor. I didn't work the benches anymore. I managed schedules, filed reports, approved requisitions. I was important now, not disposable, but the helmets still found me. They appeared in my office overnight, lining the walls, stacked in corners. I didn't remove them. The whispers had become constant, a background hum I couldn't live without. When they stopped, briefly, rarely, the silence was unbearable. I began to understand what they wanted. They wanted more workers, more listeners, more people to carry the whispers out into the Imperium, spreading them like a virus, infecting every processing center, every armory, every reclamation station. The dead wanted to be remembered, they wanted to be heard, and I could help them. I started approving transfers, workers from other divisions, other regiments, other worlds. I brought them to primary reclamation, assigned them to the stations where the helmets whispered loudest. Most quit within a week, but some, the tired ones, the broken ones, the ones who'd lost everything and had nothing left but routine, they stayed, and they started to hear. I watched them change, saw the same hollowness creep into their faces, the same empty expression I wore now. They stopped talking to each other, stopped going home. They worked and slept and worked again, and all the while the helmets whispered, filling them up with the voices of the dead. The thin woman with augmetic eyes watched me from across the processing floor. Sometimes she nodded. Approval? Acknowledgement? I didn't know. I didn't care. 2 years after sub-level 9, I received a commendation. Efficiency ratings in primary reclamation had increased 40%. Casualty processing times were down. The administratum sent a form letter, stamped and signed by someone whose name I didn't recognize. I pinned it to the wall of my office, next to the helmets. That night, I dreamed I was back in the Medicaid ward. The faceless things surrounded me, and Mira, or what had been Mira, stood at the center, her blank face turned toward me. "Thank you," she said. I woke with a taste of chemicals in my mouth. 3 years after sub-level 9, I stopped dreaming entirely. 4 years after, I stopped sleeping. 5 years after, I forgot my daughter's real face. I only remembered the smooth blank skin, the cold hands, the whispered words. "We're waiting." 6 years after sub-level 9, they found me at my desk. "Heart failure," the Medicaid said. "Routine, expected for someone my age, working my hours." They processed my body the same way I'd processed thousands of others, efficiently, without sentiment, by the numbers. My helmet went to a reclamation specialist in secondary. Standard Mark IV pattern, slightly dented, vox bead corroded but functional. And when she put it on her workbench, it began to whisper.